washed my hair in who knows how long. I've been sitting in this room for quite a while, but yeah, I mean, it really feels like I'm getting all my like memories on Facebook and stuff of photos of seminar work, and feels like it was yesterday, but also like 10 years ago. So it's a little crazy to be back, kind of back from afar. But yeah, I mean, my seminar work is still my favorite work I've done. It was an amazing time. So even though this is a little bit of a weird, conditions for you guys, I hope you're making the best of it, because it really is going to be something that you'll remember for a long time. So, I mean, I don't know if you have anything specific you want me to talk about. I can talk about like what I've done since graduation.
So you graduated, and I remember like at graduation, I think I hugged you in the line, gave you a hug as you went by. And then I think this is the first time I'm seeing you since then. So what happened?
Yeah, things were it got a little crazy after that. Well, not got, it just continued to be crazy. So that was May. Graduated, moved home-ish back to New Hampshire. I lived with my boyfriend at the time and some roommates for a few months, and I freelanced, which was awesome for the summer after graduation, to be able to work from my roof deck of my apartment, get a tan, and get paid at the same time. But then my boyfriend and I got engaged in September, so however many months after May that was. And then I was like, oh, guess I should try to get a full-time job so that I can pay for a wedding. So he and I both got like, our first adult jobs after that, full-time jobs. I got a job at a little agency in Concord, Mass. So I was commuting from Manchester, New Hampshire to Concord, Mass, which was kind of rough. And it was a really small agency, so it was cool to sort of get like a taste of working at a marketing agency without it being super fast-paced or intense right away. So in the meantime of that, we bought a house, got a couple dogs, got married. Things were a whirlwind. And then in a little over a year ago, I switched to another marketing agency, which was actually 10 minutes down the road from my house, 15 minutes from where I grew up, which is awesome because I don't know if you can see the Granite State of Mind hat. I've got a lot of New Hampshire pride. I don't know if any of you guys are from New Hampshire, but I was hoping to stay around here. I wasn't sure that I would be able to find something job-wise that was like going to be fun or challenging enough in New Hampshire, because there's not a ton, design-wise going on up here. So when I found my agency, I was really happy. It's small-ish, smaller than some of the big Boston ones. We've got about 75 employees, but that's split up between 3 different offices. One is the main one in Manchester, and then we have a small Boston office, and then a content studio in Western Mass, Indian Orchard. So they have like a whole photo shoot setups. They do all of our clients that do social media content, they shoot out there. And anytime we need some sort of studio space, we have that, which is amazing, because just to not have to rent things is really cool. And I actually recently did a brand shoot. Cedars Hummus is one of our clients, so we did a brand shoot out there, which was very cool to see that whole process. Sorry, I'm getting emails. So yeah, I've been working there for a little over a year, and it's definitely fast-paced and intense, but I'm getting to work on a lot of different clients and a lot of different types of work, which, as John pointed out, I need in order to sort of stay focused. I like to be able to move around a lot. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what's been going on since I graduated.
So in some ways, yeah, I mean, you've, I mean, would you consider what's happened sort of a success, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting to do what I wanted to do since, like you said, since day one. Close to home. I don't have to spend all day in the car. I'm getting to work on things I'm having fun doing, getting some good stuff for my portfolio, definitely, which not always keeping my website up to date, but
Yeah, that's normal.
definitely getting to work on a lot of different fun things from like I've done a couple different logo designs. I've done which the event now has been canceled, but there was a big food expo in California that Cedars goes to, and I designed their whole like event space and sort of like the experience, which was really cool to get to sort of work on not just what the graphics are, but the whole experiential design.
How was like going from sort of projects that were at school to real projects? What was that like?
Um, I mean, it's very different work, and I was actually freelancing since my like throughout senior year, so I sort of already was getting a taste of like, you know, you're not gonna get to make a cool gallery exhibition or a beautifully designed book for for your freelance clients most of the time.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, agency work at least is sort of, it's not going to be the fun experiential design. It's not going to be the beautiful objects all the time. A lot of it is, you know, just making social media posts, or I don't know, a lot of my day is that sort of minor work, but to be able to do that, to make a living and also still get to work on fun stuff, I think is good. But yeah, I mean, it's, you do have to sort of keep in mind that college is the time to, you get to explore and do the crazy stuff, because you're not always going to get to do that
How do,
afterwards.
yeah, how does your company feel about you and your having like freelance clients?
They're cool about it. So I don't have a ton of freelance clients anymore, but I do have my New Hampshire Apparel brand. So that's my own side company that I design stuff for. So, but they actually are cool about like highlighting employees that do sort of entrepreneurial things like that. It's part of the company like ethos that they are small and entrepreneurial, and they like that their employees are as well.
So, what else? Does anybody want to ask her any questions?
I was actually going to ask about New Hampshire Apparel. Like, how did that start? When did it start, first of all? Because I remember I was in I was in Jesse's papermaking class,
Yeah,
like my freshman year. Hi. And I remember you talking about that, and I was like, she's got a whole ass company and is going to college. So would you mind talking about like how that started?
Yeah, totally. So that actually I started sophomore year while I was at Montserrat. I bought a screen printing kit at Michael's and started screen printing shirts in my dorm room, making my roommates be my like assembly line, like hold down the screen for me and help me print all the shirts. But I started just selling stuff on Etsy. So like I said, the whole New Hampshire Pride thing, it's weird because it's a whole state, but it's very like we're way less regional pride than a lot of like Massachusetts or other states are. People are just like 603. And sophomore year, when all my friends were away out of state, I was like, everyone wants to like represent New Hampshire, but all of the New Hampshire clothes you could buy have like, you know, wolves howling at the moon or like tie-dye moose shirts. So I was like, we gotta fix this. So yeah, started screen printing. I had like one design that was my original live free or die with the outline of the state. Screen printing in my dorm room, selling on Etsy, and it grew a little bit from there. It was mostly people I knew buying stuff at first. But every once in a while I'd get the random out of state. Lots of Texas orders. We still do a lot of Texas orders. I don't know if they just, resonate with the live for your die thing, but
We're all on the same page.
yeah. And I actually have all throughout college and still work as a wedding photography assistant as well with my high school photo teacher. So I was, working weddings with him, telling him about all of my side hustle business stuff. And he just liked the idea and offered to sort of put money into it in order to help it grow beyond just what I could actually produce. So he sort of helped me start it up, and now he runs all of the like business side of things and our like Instagram account because he's a photographer. And I mostly just design stuff and, help him when I can. But we're co-owners. So once he was able to help fund it a little bit, then we were able to have an actual print shop, print stuff so that we could produce a lot more. And that was, I think, my senior year of college was when it sort of started to actually be like New Hampshire Apparel as it's known today, where we started like actually producing things. And since then we sell stuff in all the New Hampshire Newbury comics. We've got a bunch of smaller wholesale retailers. We sell stuff on our own website. But it's that also, even when I was at my last agency where it wasn't quite as creative work, it was great to have my own thing that I could keep like as a creative outlet and just make stuff that I liked how it looked. No, clients picking it apart and stuff like that. So it's always been a really good like outlet for me, and a, good way to have a sort of extra, help with my car payment or whatever, a little bit of extra income.
So I have another question. I know a few people that have graduated in your group and some other groups of the designers, and I've sort of sent leads to them and that sort of thing, and I get well, that's too far away. I can't drive. I don't have a car and I can't get there. Or like, how important is it to be able to go from Manchester to Concord, Massachusetts to get a job?
Yeah, I mean, well, oh, sorry, my dogs are attacking. Cool. Yeah, I mean, because I knew New Hampshire didn't have a ton of stuff, I sort of knew I was going to be, or assumed I was going to be commuting most of the time. Guys, get down. And had a car because I was driving home to New Hampshire a lot of weekends anyways. But yeah, I always sort of had that in mind that I was going to have to commute, and then did the hour commute. It was rough for a while, and I was lucky to be able to find something closer. But yeah, I mean, I think you just sort of have to either live where the work is or be willing to go where the work is if you want to work in it.
I think that's good advice. So you can hear it from somebody else, but that would be my advice, is to go where the work is, or be willing to go to the work as long as it takes you to get there. I mean, that's important to do, and it's not going to come to you.
Right. At least not right away.
Anybody else have any other questions about?
I have a question about the doing the freelance work. Where do you start with freelance work? Like I feel like I have all these social media accounts and I like try to reach out to people, but I don't get a lot of work. Like, how do you kind of get the ball rolling on getting clients for that stuff? Because I feel like I need a little more experience for freelance work, and I struggle to kind of get people interested in you making things for them.
Right. I mean, yeah, finding the freelance work is definitely the hardest part of freelance. Well, that and like doing the taxes for it. But there's a website called Upwork that I used in college, UPWORK, that where people who are looking for freelancers post, you know, what they're looking for. And you can submit proposals, you can upload work directly to that. It's a little annoying because the website takes a portion, like a finder's fee, basically. Hey. So, but I actually have found a couple clients that we like moved outside of that eventually, and it grew into bigger things once we had the initial relationship. And yeah, I mean, if you're reaching out to people you know and just posting about how I can help you sort of things, that eventually you'll find, you know, someone's aunt needs a logo for her dance studio, or someone needs some stickers designed. Sometimes it's minor stuff, but just making those connections really, people will keep you in mind and, you know, spread the word. But I think there's a couple other sites like Upwork where it's sort of like freelancer communities. And actually, I've also looked just on, like, I don't think I've ever actually gotten any work through it, but I've looked on Craigslist. Sometimes people will post like, I need someone to help me with this poster. And, you know, it's Craigslist, so you never know what you're going to get, but it's worth it to look wherever you can.
Yeah, neighborhood, that you know, you have used, you know, the neighborhood thing too, you know?
Yeah.
Right now in my neighborhood, there's people, I can't, what it's called, neighborhood, and you sign on to it, and people in my neighborhood are like within a couple of blocks or something asking for like haircuts.
Yeah, I don't actually have that app. I'm like, my neighborhood is like all old white people, so I don't know if anyone actually has the app. I should check it out because there might be some entertaining stuff going on.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I'm in Chelsea, so there's a lot of entertaining stuff.
I'm sure.
So how important is your portfolio?
Well, like I said, I don't always keep mine up to date. But
I mean, getting the freelance work and getting people to hire you.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything, because how else can you show someone that you can do it if you don't have any examples? And that can be hard because when it's, stop, you're gonna get kicked out. Come here. Sorry. Yeah, so I mean, sometimes it's hard because you don't necessarily have an example of work that is exactly like what someone's looking for. So it's also important, I think, to be able to sort of explain to someone what you're thinking you can do for them. You don't need to like show them immediately because you don't want to like do work for free if you can help it. But yeah, being able to like show them, well, I've done this type of work and I would be, you know, I think this could be good for you, blah, blah, blah. Being able to sort of explain yourself in a good way. I mean, that's what seminar helps with, honestly. But yeah, like you need to be able to demonstrate to someone that you could do the type of work that they're going to give you money for, because why else would they trust you?
Thank you.
Anything else? How's everything going for you guys besides quarantine?
You guys said neighborhood a bunch because you were talking about that app, and now I have the Mr. Rogers theme stuck in my head because I just watched the like Tom Hanks movie the other day, and now I can't get it out of my head.
Was that good? I haven't seen it yet.
It's really good. I think I cried a couple times, so be prepared.
It might not be the right time. I feel like everything makes me almost cry right now.
Yeah, I watched it with my partner, so at least I wasn't by myself.
So have you, do you want to share anything with us visually, Chase?
Sure.
You can do a share screen and click on something.
Yeah, here.
Show some examples.
You just sent my website.
Yep.
I actually did update some stuff recently, so it's not like all college work now. Share screen. So this is my website. I can actually show you guys my thesis stuff first because it's always fun to be able to look at that. So basically I did a whole sort of family research project, went through a bunch of old photo albums that my Nana had put together, basically from like when my dad was born until he and my uncles graduated high school, college. So there was a ton of photos. I can't remember how many now, but over 1,000. Scanned them all in and sort of like cataloged them all. So that is what all of these tiny squares are. Printed out, they ended up being almost like actual size of the Polaroids and old film prints. Oh my God. Hey. Okay. Kicked out. And then I did like interviews basically with my grandpa talking about specific moments and stories that he had, you know, some of them tied into specific photos, some of them were more broad, but that is what the sort of banners that are hanging in the front are. I used like transcriptions of the interviews with him to make, I called them poems, but they're, I don't know, that's a loose term. They're all his words. I just sort of edited and arranged them to sort of distill whatever that story was into a specific moment, basically. And then the banners that are in the middle layer are, excuse me, just scans of the like texture of the photo album and my grandmother's handwriting. So it all sort of hung together and like the light played around with it, which was cool. This photo is actually my family all standing behind the banners looking close up at the photos, so that was cool. And then I did little books, ones with each poem, and then eventually one that had all the poems and the photos that went with those. So that was, you know, that was my senior year. It was very fun, a lot of work, but stuff that I'm really proud of. I do still have a lot of college stuff on my website. Like, I mean, these things are all from like sophomore year. Got a Montserrat open house booklet. This was a packaging design project with John McVeigh that sort of turned into my thesis project because that was the first time I went through those photo albums. So this is sort of where my post-grad work starts. I have a few things from my last agency that were none of these, except for this one, are actually what these products look like now. But, you know, I put the things that were my favorite version of the work on my website, because once you guys start working with clients, whether it's freelance or at an agency or anywhere, you'll realize that it's never going to be exactly what you want. It's going to be, and it's actually not going to be exactly what they want either. It's going to be somewhere in between. But this was a whole sort of rebrand and website that I got to work on for this sort of crazy wealth management company. So we gave them some super lime green and bright colors. The CEO is like this crazy, I think he thinks he's like Wolf of Wall Street sort of character. So we kind of tried to bring that into the site. So that was cool to get to work on like every level of the brand. We did a photo shoot at their offices, got to help like art direct that. So that was very cool. And then these projects are things I've worked on at my agency now. The New Hampshire Lottery is one of my agency's clients. So I've done a couple logos for them. This is like a draw game. This is their old logo. This is what we ended up with. There was definitely some in between that I liked better, but they are a particularly interesting client with a lot of opinions. They just recently legalized sports betting in New Hampshire, so the lottery is going to have a like sports betting product. So it's going to be Sports 603. So that's the logo for that. But you can sort of see some of the process to get there, a bunch of different versions. And then it's now being built out into like what the terminals where you can actually play the games and stuff like that. Things that'll be out in the world, which is pretty cool.
So I got a question, Chase. Yeah. How important is it to move on from one of your original ideas to come up with some other ideas?
You just have to, like, you can't be too attached to your own ideas because I think first of all, it's probably not a great idea if you're too attached to it. It's too precious then. There's definitely a lot of the time where I'm like, well, this is the best one. I know you don't think so, but it is. You can't tell them that because they're paying you and they're employing you. But all you can do is try to defend your your favorite option or your best work. They're going to have their opinions either way. What I do on my site is I save the ones that I like the best to show, other people because I feel like that's my best work. But you definitely have to be able to just compromise and, get to where the client wants. You don't want to, sacrifice what your creativity, but that's part of the challenge, is being able to get to something that they want and have you have to still be okay with it as well.
So do you come up with like a single idea and somebody else in the company comes up with their single idea, or do you actually get a project and you have to actually show 2 or 3 different options that are quite different from each other?
It's definitely usually options. Sometimes it'll be myself and another designer both coming up with options. Sometimes it's just me. Sometimes we work together to come up with the options. Sometimes it ends up being like, these are the 2 versions I did. This is the 2 versions Lauren did. And can feel like a competition when it's like that, because it's like, well, the client picked your idea, now you get to work on it. But you can't really think of it that way. You have to, it's all going to be one end result. So I definitely try to work together with other designers when I can to be like, this is the concept I was thinking about. We could do it this way. We could do it this way. And in an agency, you all end up working on each other's projects anyways, depending on who has time. So chances are you're going to touch those files again eventually anyway. But sometimes it is like, I'll be the only designer on a project. But a lot of times it's working with a copywriter especially when it's concepting work. So they'll be writing lines or, at the initial stages, you're both doing the same thing, coming up with concepts. And then eventually it ends up being, I do what the visuals are and the copywriter writes what the words are. But at the beginning of more conceptual work, you sort of get to do the same thing and work together, that's one of my favorite parts.
Just one more about that is, so you come up with, say a couple of ideas, or there's 2 designers that are coming up with ideas. Do the like hire art directors or the principals make the decision on what to show the client?
Yeah, there's a lot of levels of who it goes through. So it's, yeah, usually a creative director that, I do, okay, these are my first three versions, show it to the creative director. He is like, okay, let's, make these edits, get rid of that version, let's build out another version of this, blah, blah. There's usually a couple rounds like that. And then it goes to the account team, which is, I don't know if anyone's watched Mad Men, but if you're planning on working in a marketing agency, that will help you figure out the organization of an agency, actually. So the account team is basically the ones that talk to the client, get the information, and then give it to us, and then goes the other way as well. They take the work, present it to the client. Sometimes we get to also help present, but they're the ones that are really like hyping up your work and presenting it and explaining it to the client a lot of the time. So sometimes they'll have their own feedback and be like, okay, well, we know this woman doesn't like this style of typography, which is sometimes super subjective, but she's the one that's buying it, so we got to change that. So there's definitely a lot of levels it goes to before the client even sees it.
So you have an open mind all the way. And then another question sort of on the same is, when you come up and you show 2 or 3 ideas, are you happy to work with all of those ideas if they choose any one? Or are you just hopeful that they're going to choose the one and sort of slack off on the other 2?
No, I mean, you got to be okay with any of the options you present, because they're never going to pick you're the creative director might, but most people are not going to pick the one that's your favorite. So I never show work that I'm not going to be okay with working on later. I mean, it's definitely like, and on everything I've showed you guys so far, it's been like, well, I liked this version the best, but it didn't end up being the one that we picked. And actually my agency, so one of my creative directors who's on most of my clients is actually he's a creative director now, but he wasn't a designer before. He was a copywriter. So a lot of the times we have totally different points of view, just because he's not coming from like a visual concept initially, which can be good and bad, because there's no way for him to be like, okay, we'll make it look like this, because he doesn't know how to use the programs. So it's definitely more like up to me to make it, but it can be difficult in sort of, going from that visual to that conceptual.
So do you like being in the designer role, or would you see yourself being like an administrator or administrator later?
I think, I don't know. I have been thinking about that a lot. I don't know that I would love being a creative director. I think I probably be good at it, because I've always been good at sort of organizing people. But I think it would be hard for me to keep my hands out of it, not just do it myself, do it the way I wanted it done. So that's definitely, a thing I've thought about a lot recently, is like, do I want to keep going in an agency, because that's the path, is to end up as a creative director or art director eventually. But I don't know. I like making the work too much.
Yeah. So maybe there's a sign coming with your name on it somewhere.
Yeah, actually, well, I've been thinking recently that this project, the Cedars booth, where I got to sort of do the experiential aspect of it, was something that I really enjoyed. And it also sort of, working with weddings and events has always been something, since I graduated high school, that I've liked doing. And then when I planned my own wedding, we did everything ourselves. So I really do like that sort of experiential design thing, which is sort of getting bigger now. So I'm kind of like looking into that, but I always have a lot of things going on, so we'll have to see. But that was definitely something that I liked, getting to really design not just what people are looking at, but everything they're sort of experiencing in a space.
So for this, did you have to choose everything, like go like, you know, Pottery Barn or someplace and pick out the vases and sort of like be the decorator?
Initially, yes. Like I said, this one got the event got postponed, and we were working with a vendor that like manufactured the actual booth. So there, you know, in all those many hands being involved, there's changes that weren't in the initial design or materials picked that weren't necessarily, you know, the exact flooring I picked or whatever. So it did change, but the sort of overall initial concept and feel of it, which is what I came up with, is what will be the end result. So I was happy with that. But yeah, I mean, I picked, you know, use these lanterns, use this pillow on the chair, and some of that made it, some of it didn't.
Mm-hmm. And the outdoor cafe, was that or like the Palapa, whatever that kind of outdoor roof is? Does that come from the exhibition company that makes that produces this stuff?
Yeah, so I mean, that was really like the idea was to make the booth feel like a patio under a pergola. And I was like, I'm designing this. I have no idea if this can actually be built. But we worked with the booth vendor that actually like built the whole thing to figure out what, you know, how many beams it needed and whatever. And well, no one has seen what the real thing looks like yet because this event isn't happening until Corona's over. But yeah, I mean, they did build it with, there is an actual pergola that goes over the top of the space, and, you know, a big island with a cooler in it and all that stuff that they actually built somewhere in Mass, the vendor is. And then it all gets shipped to California.
I'm not sure if there's anything else.
I don't know. Is there anything on here that you guys is popping out to you guys that you have any questions about?
I have more of a comment. Yeah. I remember your thesis show, and I don't know, it was incredible.
Thank you.
Like, I remember standing there for like 30 minutes, and like, you know, I usually just like, it's usually just a quick in and out thing for me, but like, I remember like yours was really good.
Well, thank you so much. That means a lot. Yeah, that was a really cool part, was to see people looking at my work was very cool.
Yeah.
So we can break out of this shared screen.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
And so I think that your group worked, you know, fairly well together installing your show. And I mean, these people, they're not going to get that sort of experience of that installation and that process that happened. So they're working on a zine or a little document that's putting all of their work together in one book, sort of like an overall, you know, they're each doing their own process book, but this is kind of like a group process book or something like that. And but there's some part of working together. But how was your experience working together with your group during that part of the semester?
Yeah, I mean, we were all pretty close in seminar, which was cool. It was definitely, the actual like build out was stressful because it's, you know, a quick process. And we were all there very late and then very early for a couple days. But it went pretty smoothly. I mean, there was no like meltdowns or screaming at people, and everyone got their work in. So it was a like sort of, is this gonna get done process for a while, but it was really cool to be able to like see it all when it was done. Yeah, come on.
So was that something that, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, you go work in an agency and you have to work with other people and sort of relying on part B getting done by another person in order to make the whole thing work. Does that help at all?
Yeah,
Or
I
it's
mean,
totally a different thing?
right. No, I think it's definitely similar. It's not always as high of stakes I mean, I guess it is because it's actually going to a client, but it doesn't always feel as high of stakes because you're not, physically hanging 14 posts on 10 feet in the air.
Yeah,
But
remember that.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, being able to work with people is definitely a big thing. No matter what, you're always gonna, unless you're gonna immediately start your own freelance business and never work with anyone, you have to be able to work with people, and you have to be able to trust that the rest of your team is gonna get their work done, which can definitely be hard. Like John said, I'm a little bit particular, and it can be like, okay, well, I just want to do this piece because I know I'm going to be able to get it done, or I'm going to be able to do it the way I want. But you burn yourself out real quick if you tried to do every piece of the work yourself. So I think having a balance between that sort of, and I think that is a designer thing. A lot of the designers I know and have met have that sort of like type A or particularity about things, and it's good to have that because that means you make good work, but you also do have to, trust your team.
Certain amount of delegation. Do you, like, on the photo shoots, or even like working on that installation for conference for Cedars, you're sort of working with a bunch of different people doing a bunch of different parts, and so how do the different parts, are you like feeling a little bit like a conductor in some ways?
No, well, no, I think especially at an agency, the sort of workflow and who does what is sort of baked in because of how many different things there are to get done in a piece of work. So most of the time I know what is my portion of the work and what I need to get done and who I need to send it to so that they can get their work done. So I think at least at my level, probably if I were a creative director, I would feel more like the conductor. Right now, I definitely feel like, all right, I got to get my piece done and hope everyone else does too.
So, anybody have any questions or things they want to talk about? I think Chase can answer a lot of questions.
Did your thesis project go through like a lot of like different stages before this one, or did you have this idea and you were like, this is what I want to do, and you just like proceeded?
No, it definitely started in a very different place. I knew I wanted to sort of focus on family in general. I was originally thinking it would be a lot more like infographic-y, and I did like a DNA test, and I was thinking it would be a lot more like data driven actually. And it turned into more of a story driven piece, which I think helped it because I don't think looking at a bunch of infographics would have been quite as interesting. Yeah, and it definitely developed and changed a lot and I did focus on the same like family thing for a whole year, which I think was helpful because I had more time to explore. But yeah, it did change, and I think even what the like final product was going to look like, I didn't really know until, I mean, it wasn't like a last minute thing, but I knew I wanted to have the photos in there. I knew I wanted to have these like stories, and then but the actual like, okay, I want it to be on translucent fabric and I want it to be able, like, light to shine through it, that sort of stuff definitely came together closer to the end because I wanted to make sure I had the right like content before I figured out what it was going to look like.
Cool. I think you might have had some samples of that fabric, and I think, I remember the panels with the different things that were hanging, one of the layers that were hanging with the text on it, how you had worked on that type quite a bit, endlessly in a way, making proof after proof until you kind of got it right.
Yeah, fighting with the printers. Yeah, and actually in that papermaking class that I was in with Becky, I was working on, like, I thought maybe I could use something with that, making like translucent paper, printing on that. So I definitely did make a bunch of different versions. I liked the sort of like translucency for sure. I looked at a ton of different printer like websites of, the type of fabric they could print on. I think I did order a bunch of samples. That one ended up being, cost effective, and they could turn it around in a good amount of time, make it the exact size I wanted. It actually ended up being in New Hampshire, and I like drove from Montserrat one day up to the print shop after I had ordered it to like pick it all up in person. And they were like, this is unusual. We usually ship things to people. So they like showed me around their print shop, which was pretty cool. And yeah, I mean, it was definitely a cool process to get to like work with people that were producing something with my work on it, which is something now I do all the time.
So how do you, I mean, now that you have the images and the memory of the work that you did, does it seem like it was worth whatever it cost?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like you said, I have the memories of it. I ended up, the book that I made after the show that had all of the poems in it laid out with the specific photos, I have a bunch of prints of that, and I was able to like give them to my grandpa and my dad and my uncles as gifts, which was cool because, it was like their stories as well. Yeah, I mean, I don't remember what it costs, but I remember how it looked and how it felt. So that feels like it was worth it.
So no regrets.
No regrets. I mean, I was lucky enough to be working I worked all through college, and I was freelancing senior year, so I had money to spend, which is
I know
necessary.
it is. I know that, but I mean, it's just something that I hear about expenses and costs, and wondering if it's worth it or not. And I think it's important to hear from somebody that put their heart and everything into it to say that it was worth it.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, I, priced out a lot of different options, and being able to do that sort of work with almost administrative work, like you said before, is helpful. You gotta get the best deal. And actually, I mean, not that I've done any exhibition work since then, but like I said, the sort of experiential aspect of it is something that I still enjoy, and it was cool to be able to like know that I can build a space that someone wants to be in, and maybe that's where I'm heading again.
Yeah, I think some of the other people in your group made sort of experiential spaces, Elise and those folks.
Yeah, definitely.
Are you still in touch with any of the people in your class?
Yeah, I follow all of them on Instagram, so I'm definitely up to date on that. But I still talk to Adela a lot. Brittany and I send each other gifts every once in a while. Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like I've been like following along with what everyone's up to, but I mean, Adela is who I was closest to in college, and still am now.
Oh, by the way, you should get your form into Nathan.
All right.
And that will help.
Yeah, definitely.
And no one has any questions for Chase? She's here.
My email's on my website as well. If you guys think of anything after, definitely feel free to reach out.
So are we kind of done here? You have to go back to work, right, Chase?
Yeah, I've been keeping an eye on my emails.
All right. I'm going to stop recording.
All right. That's been something that I've like, oh, that's cool a lot of the time, seeing what people are coming up with. So it'll be cool to see what you guys come up with too. Just think of it as another creative challenge.
Did you see anything in there that stood out to you?
I haven't. I like quickly looked through it. I didn't.
All right.
I didn't.
I'm not going to put you on the spot. No, don't do that. Because if you mention one, then A is going to be upset with B, and C is going to be upset with A.
Right. Well, I know Becky's going to Hatch Show, which is really cool. I saw that on Instagram. My dog is actually named Nash. We love Nashville. We've been there a couple times, and I can show you my wall up here has got a few Hatch prints on it. So that's super cool. I'll have a ton of fun there.
Well, hopefully next time we have to meet, or you can come to class, we'll be in live.
Totally. Yeah, I would love to come down, especially now that I'm, not commuting. It's easier to go somewhere else for the day.
Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you.